Hi, this is Kathy from Gadget Stop 321, and in today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at a couple of pens from Benu that they sent me to try out and to make a video about my thoughts about each one. These are both, to my knowledge, fairly new. Actually, one of them's new and one of them's a reintroduction of a previous model. The first one is the Tribute, and as far as I know, this one is a new model. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but the finish I have here is called the Darwin. There's another one in this series called the Marie Curie, and if you'd like to see it, it's a purple pen made out of a purple material. Manda B over on the YouTube channel Inksplat has that pen and has done a video of it. But I saw this one on Instagram, and this Darwin model caught my eye. The turquoise and the amber color. I just really liked that color combination. And to my knowledge, that was the first time I had seen this model. Now, there are other finishes in this pen that have some of the hand painting that Benu is known for, but the Marie Curie and this Darwin are just kind of sparkle infused resins. And they also sent me a Tessera. Now the Tessera, I went back and searched. It was out a few years ago, I think in 2020. I don't know if that's when they introduced it, but I know in 2020, Fig Boot did a video on the Tessera. The only difference I could see between the old one and this new reintroduction is that the clip was attached to a metal band, similar to what you see here in the Tribute model. The older model looked like, from what I can tell, had a metal band that the clip was attached to. And there's some issues with the way this clip has been incorporated in this new reintroduction. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But also, this new reintroduction, the finish is a combination of matte and shiny. I think that's new. And also, correct me if I'm wrong here as well, this is the first time I've noticed gold hardware on Benu pens. I really like that. Now, both of these models, like previous models of Benu's, come with a standard international converter as well as a long ink cartridge, and it's blue. To my knowledge, Benu usually sends blue ink cartridges with their pens. And it comes in the standard Benu packaging, the shredded paper, the cardboard box, the little warranty information, the cardstock sleeve. I'm kind of fond of their packaging. It's not over the top. It can be recycled or disposed of easily, or you can keep it to store your pens. Now, both of these pens were sent to me from Benu at no charge. They gave me a choice between the Marie Curie and the Darwin, so I picked the Darwin because it jumped out at me when I saw it on Instagram. And the Tessera comes in a number of colors, and I chose this one because, as Benu described it, it looks kind of classic by Benu's standards. It's still got some sparkle in it. Both pens are available with a fine, medium, or broad Schmidt nib, but the Darwin is also available with an elastic fine nib, and I like that they call it elastic and not a flex nib, because that's a more accurate description, and I'll show that. I have the elastic fine nib on this one, but it's also available in a Jowo 1.1 stub and 1.5 stub nibs. Those are all steel. But this one's also available with a selection of 14 karat gold nibs, extra fine, fine, medium, broad, elastic fine, and 1.5 stub nib. But the gold nib will cost an extra $250. And that brings me to the price. The price of the Tribute is $210 on the Benu website. The Tribute appears to be a Benu exclusive, from what I can tell. I think the Tessera is going to be available from retailers. In fact, it is available for pre-order from a few retailers already, and it's also going to be in the $200 range. I've seen it anywhere from, I think, $193 up to $205. So these are both fairly expensive pens. Now, I'm going to take a look at each one in a little more detail. The Tribute, one thing you notice is the cap is fairly chunky. It will post, but it makes the pen pretty long. Now, I do have small hands, but even if you have larger hands, well, you might be able to write with it if you have larger hands. This seems to be, if it hits your hand right here, it feels nice and balanced. But the cap is slightly wiggly. And I have other pens like this, that if it's wiggly like this as you're writing and it's moving in that crook of your hand, it can work its way loose. Now that was fairly secure. You could probably, even if you mash it all the way down, it's still a little bit wiggly. I find it very comfortable to write with unposted. The section is a little on the narrow side, but not uncomfortable, not so narrow that it's uncomfortable. I got mine with the elastic fine nib. I inked up the converter. This is a Schmidt converter, and this is a Yovo nib, by the way. I may have already mentioned that. But the threads are nice and smooth. I'll go ahead and do a writing sample with this one. Normally, I do my writing samples in my Hobonichi, an old Hobonichi planner, but the grids are kind of small on that, and this elastic fine writes fairly wet. So I'm writing on a Rhodia pad that I think this is 6 or 7 millimeter grids, but I'm pretty sure it's 6. I'll check and make a note. Fairly wet. Now, in my Daily Mate that Benu sent to me a while back, that it also had an elastic fine, and I feel like it wrote a little more broad. Let me get a writing sample from it out. I feel like it wrote more like a medium, and that's what I was expecting from this one. Let's see. I did 2 writing samples with 2 different inks. One with they were both Wearingeul inks. One with Jane Eyre and one with, I think it was called Daddy Longlegs. And let me compare these two. The elastic fine in this pen feels just slightly more narrow. It might be more like a medium fine. And it feels really wet. It could just be the ink, but it feels pretty wet. The ink I have in here is one of my favorites, Tasha Hokusai Benisuchi. And the reverse on this one. It feels okay, but it's just it's writing uniformly. It doesn't look like it's running dry, but it's just ultra extra fine. I don't feel like that would be as useful as some of the reverse writers that I have. Now, I do have to watch the paper that I write with this on because it is a really wet writer. I don't know if Benu tunes them to write this wet. I know Benu does do a good job of tuning them to write smoothly. But when I first inked this up, I had it sitting on my desk horizontally, and as I would try writing with it, it was just too wet. And I stored it in my purse vertically for a while, and I think I read somewhere in the directions maybe that Benu recommends storing your pens vertically, and it does write a little bit better. But overall, I really like this pen. It's getting a little blingy for my taste, but I really love these elastic Yovo nibs, and I feel like this would be a fun pen to journal with. One of my favorite things about this pen is the clip. I like that it's one of those pinch clips. That's kind of handy. Next, I'll do a writing sample with the new Tessera. This one has a Schmidt medium nib. And this color scheme is called Black Amber. And this medium nib on this Rhodia paper is just buttery smooth. It's also a pretty wet writer. I've got the same ink in this pen just to kind of accurately compare the difference between that elastic fine and the medium. When I was corresponding back and forth with Benu, they asked me which nib sizes I preferred, and I asked for the medium and the elastic fine, but I didn't specify which one I wanted in which pen. And to me, this pen feels smaller, so with smaller pens, I generally prefer a finer nib. With smaller pens, I'm usually writing in smaller notebooks, and I prefer a finer nib. And especially like in a black pen, I might want to use a black ink. And with black ink, I like a finer nib. But I'm really enjoying this ink with this color scheme of this pen. Let me check the reverse writing on this one. I like the line size that this one's putting down. It writes a bit drier, so since this nib is so wet, certain papers you're just not going to be able to write on it, but in a pinch, if you need to, this would be a good writer. It's a little bit scratchy. I'll use some micromesh later and smooth it out, but I like the line size that it's putting down. It's very legible, and sometimes I need to write fine like this so that I can write smaller. So that would be really handy, especially with a medium nib like this, to have the option to write with a finer line if you need to. So there's not a whole lot of difference between the line width of these two, but it's noticeable as you are writing. I do like both of these. The things I really like about this Tessera are the combination of matte and glossy in the finish. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but on the surface of these almost like mosaic tiles, the surface of them are matte, and it's not a texture that you can feel, but it's got almost a velvetiness to it, a softness. It doesn't feel rubbery. It's not one of those pens that like feels literally soft. It's just the smoothness has a softness to it. But inside, the little cuts are glossy, and it just makes it look, gives it a really interesting look. And also with the cap band and the finials, they are matte and then glossy in the cuts. On the cap band, inside the letters where it spells out Benu are a glossy, smooth finish. I really like that. Now, one thing I'm not fond of, this is more of a concern than something I don't like. The main thing I like clips for are the fact that they make good roll stops. And this clip does make a good roll stop, but it's not that great of a clip, because if you can see here, it looks like where the little tiles kind of stick out, this is kind of a design flaw. The clip actually is flush with the barrel at a point, and that makes the little pinch clip kind of unusable. And if you want to keep your pen in a case where the clip goes over a material, you really get to a point where you feel like you're going to bend the clip. It won't go over the material anymore. So, not the most usable clip for clipping, but it does make a really nice roll stop. It doesn't stick out so far that it gets in the way, but it's a nice roll stop. So for me, let me see. If you have a case where, for me this works okay because my clip, the pen is not so girthy that the clip doesn't fit down in the pocket. And while I've got my Lockbee pen case out here, it's worth noting that the Tribute is just a hair too tall to fit in the pocket and be able to zip up without scraping across the top of it. But let me see. If I just set it in here, that's kind of a dangerous way to do it though. But the pens kind of fit staggered across like that. In a pinch, if you needed to keep it secure, this will work. But you just have to remember that you have a loose pin in there, or I have to remember that I have a loose pin in there and be careful when I open it up. But that's something to keep in mind. I don't mind this kind of design flaw at all. It kind of works out better for me. Now, one other issue it has, let me see. The threads right here, nice and smooth. Maybe a little bit wiggly, but not something that really jumps out at you. but the threads between the section and the body are really tight. In fact, they've kind of loosened up a little bit since I've been using it. I was kind of concerned at first. Like, at first I thought, when I tried to take the body off the section, I thought, has this been cross-threaded? But you really have to put a little extra effort into it, more so than in any other pen that I have. Now, when you get up close to it being fully threaded on there, right here, just almost at the end, well, yeah, right there, it kind of loosens up a little bit. It's kind of the opposite of, if you've ever had a pen that has an O-ring there at the end, it's kind of spins freely at the beginning, and then at the end, when that O-ring engages, it kind of tightens it up to keep it from accidentally coming loose. Well, this is kind of the opposite. It's not that loose at the end, but it's a little looser than right there at the end. It spins a little more freely. I just find that a little bit odd, but just something to be aware of. I'm not sure if this pen is eyedropperable because you've got a seam here between two different materials. You've got that metal band. In the literature I got with this, it didn't say specifically that it was eyedropperable. Now, this does say in the description that the tribute can be eyedropper filled. Let me look at. Yeah, but it also has this also has the two different materials with the metal band. So maybe the Tessera can also be eyedroppered. Now, another thing I really like about the Tessera is it posts really nicely. There's no wiggling. In fact, it's not super noticeable because of the design of the tiles, but if you look, there's a slight step right there, which I think was designed so that the back of the pen can fit into the cap more securely. And it's a little bit back heavy for me because my hands are smaller, but if your hands are very much bigger than mine at all, this would be really nicely balanced. And in a pinch, it's not terrible. If I need to have a free hand, I can post this one. The section, like the other pen, is a little bit on the narrow side, but not uncomfortable. Another thing I like about this pen is that the cap tapers down. I just like that shape in a pen. I like it when the ends taper a little bit. They don't necessarily have to be round or flat, but I just like that tapered shape. I guess that's part of the classic, what Benu called the classic look of this pen. And Benu described this as understated and a little bit classic and, understated by their standards because some of them, actually most of the models, have a little bit of glitter. So I'm kind of surprised. Out of the two, I prefer the Tessera. I just like the shape of it overall. I do like the color scheme of this tribute. And in fact, the Tessera has one that the body of the pen is this amber color, and the finial and the cap band are kind of a teal or turquoisey color. So you have some colorful options, and I think there's a bluish purple Tessera. So there are some colorful options as well as these dark understated colors. Overall, I kind of had sticker shock when I saw the price tag of these pens, $200 for a steel nib pen. But as I started thinking about it, recently I've paid in the $200 range for several steel nib pens. I bought a steel nib pen from Dave Dollar. It was $200, and it's a smaller pen than this with a number 5 size nib. I paid $170 for for a pen from Magnolia Pen Company, and also one from Durrell Pens. And I paid $190 for another steel nib pen that had the black coating on it from Magnolia Pen Company. So it's looking like these not mass-produced steel nib pens, Benu's not a small maker, but it's not a big company. So it looks like $200 isn't out of the realm of reasonableness. Could you even describe it like that? It's not unheard of, I should say. I kind of lump pens into two categories: fun pens and serious pens. Fun pens I use for journaling, letter writing, that kind of thing. And my serious pens are more for note-taking, meetings, that kind of thing. And I think the Tessera is more of a serious pen, and I think it looks pretty good with something like a Nemesign notebook. And my Tribute pen is more of a fun pen for journaling, and I think it looks really good with my Camel Traveler's Notebook. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.